Hi, I'm Stephanie Shelton, and this is episode 43 of Conversations on Health, How We Get There. Now, we all know how fast AI models are moving in almost every industry. Healthcare is no exception. But here in the U.S., you're more apt to notice the difference in small ways. How quickly your blood tests are posted in your patient portal or sent to your doctor in radiology. For example, my last mammogram was AI read, and the results were available to me and my gynecologist less than 2 hours after I walked out of the imaging room. In most hospitals, AI now identifies patients at high risk of being hospitalized again soon after release. And of course, AI has been at work in insurance and other administrative functions for some time, as well as in tasks like remote monitoring. But what if I were to tell you that AI embedded in a primary care system could look at a patient's blood tests and before they even get to the doctor, recommend that patient's diabetic medications be changed because there are very early signs of kidney function failure? It's really quite amazing and yet quite normal in Israel's universal healthcare system, as my guest Dr. Ron Balicer will explain. He's a physician, scientist, and executive who's the Chief Innovation Officer at Clalit, Israel's largest healthcare organization. He also works with the Clalit Research Institute, the World Health Organization, and other organizations and universities in Israel and beyond, planning, developing, and implementing novel AI solutions in healthcare. And also, quite amazing to me, on the other side of the world, we Zoomed just a few days after Israel and the U.S. attacked Iran, with Ron in a safe and quiet place where he works. So, we start with a quick overview of the Israeli health system so you'll understand why Clalit was able to adopt AI so quickly. Ron, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And I think it's going to be really, really interesting because everything these days is about AI. And particularly in healthcare, I think there are great hopes and great fears. So if I could start by asking you very briefly, because each country's health system is somewhat different, even if you have universal healthcare, could you just explain what the basics of Israel's healthcare system are, and about Clalit? What is Clalit?
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Stephanie, for the opportunity to be speaking with you today. I think the Israeli healthcare system is really a unique example in its structure. Every citizen in Israel is entitled to be a member of one of four healthcare systems. You might call them sick funds, you might call them health maintenance organizations. It's not exactly like something that you have basically in any other country. These HMOs, if let's call them for the sake of the sick funds, are responsible for your care as both payers and providers of primary and specialty care. These organizations get money from the state by capitation, and they need to use that allotted sum of money in order to provide each individual with all of the health services they might need. That would include anything from, there's a really wide basket, we call it the basket of services, or the list of services entitled that you can get. That includes primary care, all types of specialty care, any emergency care in a hospital of any type, including admissions to almost a vast variety of potential services in the hospital setting. All of this at no cost, basically. You also have, very controlled costs of medications. Some of them you get, in some instances, for free, and in some instances with co-payment that is very, very manageable. And the HMO is responsible, or a sick fund is responsible for all of these relevant domains at once. Now, The way it works is that as a baby, your parents decide to which one of the four you will be part of.
And may I
And
interrupt you for 1 second? How do you make that decision? What's
okay, that's
different
a really
about the funds?
so it's interesting. So those four funds, Clalit, which is the largest of and very different from the others in whale, I'll explain in a second. The decision is not made obviously by the cost because you don't pay anything to your sick fund. The state pays for your enrollment in the sick fund. It is also not a competition on what you will be entitled for because that also is dictated by the state.
Right.
So what is left to compete? You need to be competing on quality of care, basically, healthcare quality, and on the level of service. So any type of patient experiences, and that is basically the things that you are left with to compete.
And can you change funds at some point in your life if you want to?
Absolutely. It is actually the case that you can switch funds every 2 months. You can do the
Whoa.
6 times a year, and all you need to do is either do an online simple procedure or walk to your nearest post office and you switch. So obviously there's a lot of competition because every patient brings with him all of the allotted sums that the country
Right.
offers. So this creates a fierce competition on the hearts of the population, and as we know, competition is critical to continuously improve care and level of service. And so that is one of the driving forces of this system.
And just briefly, in terms of outcomes, where does Israel stand with the rest of the world in terms of patient outcomes?
Can I answer your question about Clalit now before we go there?
Sure. Go ahead.
So of these four healthcare organizations, or national healthcare organizations, they all provide in the entire country. They're not separated geographically.
Yeah.
Clalit is by far the largest one. It covers over 50% of Israel, is over 5 million people, and it cares from them usually from cradle to grave. Despite the fact that I just told you that you can switch your sick fund every 2 months, the matter of the fact is that over 90% of people stay within their sick fund throughout their lifespan. And so we have an embedded interest to keep our patients healthy because in 90% of the cases, we know as we care for them when they're 1 year old or 20 years old, that they will be our members and in our responsibility when they're 30, 50, and 83. So that is, I think, something that needs to be taken into account. Now, Clalit is by far the largest one, as I've mentioned, but it's also different from the others as it is the only one who has its own chain of hospitals that provide care to the population. So 1/3 of the acute hospital beds in the country are actually within one of Clarit's 14 hospitals all around the country from north to south. We have one in Eilat, at the southwest part of the country, and Ha'emek up north, and east and west. So basically, Clalit is an all-in-one organization, fully integrated vertically and horizontally, payer, provider, primary, specialty, hospital care, pharmacies, everything from imaging centers, alternative medicine, dental services, anything you'd want in one organization.
I got to tell you, from an American standpoint, it sounds like heaven. Anyway,
It's
I
not
have
so
a,
bad.
you
It's not so bad.
try navigating here.
So the fact that 90% actually select to stay with their selected health fund and not move is really interesting, not because it shows a lot about the type of service, but also you must remember we're talking about Israelis here, and Israelis are happy about nothing. So the fact that when we do surveys and 90% of our patients say they're either happy or very happy with our services, that is quite unique.
Okay. I guess, well, you must be like Americans. None of us are happy either. So, especially coming out of winter. But going back to and this is the last generalized question I want to get an answer to. Outcomes. Where do you stand? Because as you know, Americans spend the most money of any country and have the worst outcomes in general.
Outcomes in Israel is considered world class. In life expectancy, it is among the highest life expectancies in the world. And that would be a good sign. But now, when you couple it with the healthcare expenditure and you look at outcomes in terms of life expectancy versus percent of GDP expenditure on healthcare, then Israel is a far, far outlier on the positive sense. With 7 to 7.3% of GDP, we are able to get world-class life expectancy. But also, if you look at the OECD preventable mortality rankings, we score among the top. And I think that if we talk about, for instance, life expectancies in males, Israel is number one in the world. So it is, I think, quite interesting to see these results coming out of a system that is so parsimonious in its use. And when we think about how can that be, how can you get such good outcomes with such low expenditure? I think there are several secret sauce components to that. One, I would say, is the fact that Israel spends extremely high proportion of its expenditure on primary care. In Israel, primary care is the most important type of healthcare service, and we put some money where our mouth is, in the sense that the percentage that goes to this is highest in all OECD countries, that goes to preventive and community care and primary care. Israel is one of those few countries in the world, maybe the only one, where you can find primary care physicians getting paid on public service more than surgeons. So that shows just how important we deem primary care in the overall structure. And I think that is something that really helps us in the age of chronic illness maintain costs while getting health quality. So secret sauce component one, that's primary care. Component two would be aligned incentives. As we talked before, our system is not geared towards heads in beds. It's not geared towards just doing procedures for the sake of getting a refund for the procedure. The system, the provider has the option to see things in holistically. And because the system looks at it for the longer term, because we're not like insurers in some other countries that only care for you for 1 or 2 years on average, we care for you 70 years on average. So we have to be really conscientious about investing now in order to keep you healthy in the future. So this type of aligned incentives, where the incentives of the system, the provider, are aligned with those of the patients towards maintaining health, is the second secret sauce component. The third one that I'll mention will be basically the use of data. Israel is uniquely has started earlier than many other countries in collecting data and has gone fully digital in terms of digital health records as long as the mid 90s. So at Clalit, even when we talk about, when I came to this organization 2007 and I started the whole data-driven operations, we already had 10 years of electronic health data to work with that we have used even at that point in time, almost 20 years ago. We used this type of data in order to provide predictive, proactive care based on data when we can do it 20 years before anyone else. So we had the incentive and we had the data. And the last point that I'll say to say why is it that we get the results that we get, I would say there's an innovative spirit to this country that all the time drives continuous improvement and challenging the status quo and trying different ways of doing things that would allow us to be able to get better and better at what we do. So when you have the innovative spirit and you have the willingness, and you have the incentive to do the right thing, and you have the data in place, and you have all of the different components of the system fully integrated, then you can do so much with so little.
Well, it sounds like the perfect segue to AI because you're already prepared for it. I cannot tell you how many doctors' offices, from my eye doctor down to the dentist, down to primary care, I have been in recent times where they're still using folders with handwritten notes in them. I mean,
Yeah, I know. In fact,
I
familiar
left
with it.
my eye doctor because of that, and because I'm like, I don't want you touching my eyes if you can't update at least, to a computer for your notes.
So I've just finished a meeting with the head of the ophthalmology of the eye medicine here in one of the Clalit key hospitals, Rabin Medical Center, and we were talking about what she does, and everything there is digital.
Mm.
Every retinal scan is fully digital. Any OCT test is fully digital. All of this data goes into a data repository. All of this is used to fuel both training of new AI models and utilization of existing AI models in order to do predictive and better provision of care and identification. And if we're talking about AI, I can give you one very concrete example of one of the AI systems we developed here. Because as I told you, the most important thing for us is, at the end of the day, the most important thing is primary care. So we
Yes.
wanted to have a very robust system, AI-driven system of decision support in the provision of primary care. So we've created homegrown AI suite of tools that we call the Clalit Predictive Proactive Intervention System, CPI, and is now known throughout the country as AI Pro. And this basic system that we've created allows us to have every bit of data in the patient's record analyzed continuously.
Oh,
And for every patient, all of the data points, all of the blood tests, everything that they went through, that is then being cross-referenced with every existing guideline that we have hard-coded into the system and different predictive models that we've created. And this is an ongoing iterative process. And so when this kind of ongoing system suggests a care gap, that a certain patient right now should be receiving a diagnostic test that he hasn't received so far, or when we feel that a patient should be changing their medication to another medication, for instance, because one of the blood tests that he has done 2 days ago, and the physician hasn't seen it yet, and the patient hasn't seen it yet, but it's in the system.
hmm.
The system sees that there's early signs of renal insufficiency, of kidney function failure, and already knows that that means we need to change your diabetic medications, and a recommendation goes out to the physician saying, hey, this patient, Stephanie, she did this test 2 days ago, and now we need to change her diabetic drug because it could hurt her kidneys more. Why don't you bring her in and change her medication? And the physician can make his mind whether this is an appropriate or inappropriate recommendation and change care. And I will tell you, I'd like you to guess how many such care gap closures we've done this month.
I can't. I can't. Tell
So
me.
people sometimes you talk in 100, sometimes 500. The answer is we have. I'm not talking about recommendation. I'm talking about change of practice after recommendation has been
Yeah.
vetted by a physician and moved forward to a recommendation
Yeah.
and an SMS sent to the patient. 100,000 such care gaps have been
Wow.
closed with
Wow.
100,000 patients based on this AI system that is day in and day out working in this environment. Just for the yes, you were asking.
Okay. I want to know. I mean, this is way beyond there may be hospital systems in our country that have something similar, but this is way beyond anything I've ever heard for us in America, anyhow. For that matter, the Czech Republic, where I spent a lot of time, would be, similar, way beyond that. Is there a characteristic about your health system or Clalit specifically that makes it more likely for you to have well, you said you already digitized. That might be one characteristic. But for you to go to this point where you already have AI working as we would expect it to maybe work 5, 10 years from now.
So the question why Clalit is very legitimate because we don't see that level of sophistication with other healthcare systems
Uh-huh.
locally, and they do have amazing things that they do, but this example does not exist elsewhere. And I think there's several things that make Clalit be more ready for this age. One, we started before anybody else did. We created the Clalit Research Institute that began using data to create world-class research studies that were published in the best journals probably 5 to 10 years before the others did, and far, far before the AI revolution, recent revolution. The second point is that Clalit has its own, within its system, a whole set of unique experts that we have grown over the years. These are both professionals in computer science, mathematics, and modeling, but also physicians that have undergone double training with MDs that have PhDs in computer science
Oh,
and
wow.
have a qualification in public health. So
Hmm.
this kind of when you have a group of such amazing scholars working in one place, I think that's where new types of innovation comes in. And the final reason that Khalid can do things is because it's bigger than the others, and size matters for this. There's the ability to allocate both resources and clinical grounds in order to test drive everything that you're doing. And finally, I will say that Khalid was first to understand the importance of innovation, AI, and data, and therefore has gone more forward than the others. And everybody's now following suit, and everybody are making bold attempts when it comes to use the new tools of AI. But we've begun doing this so far before the others, and CPI we began putting into practice almost 10 years ago. Now, let me give you one example with numbers that will
Yeah.
explain the revolution that AI brings in and CPI puts to practice. There's a disease called hepatitis C.
Mm.
Maybe you know it.
Mm.
It's a blood virus that you
Right.
get, and it can basically, at the end of the day, create very severe liver disease. It could cause liver cirrhosis, an insufficiency of your liver, and it can cause liver cancer, which is a very violent type of cancer that you don't want to have. And basically, all you have to do in order for all of these bad things not to happen to you is to be curing the virus. And today there are drugs that if I get them and I have hepatitis C, in 99% of the cases, the virus is gone.
Right.
Sustained viral response, and there will be no more virus, and therefore there will be no cirrhosis and no liver cancer. The
Right.
problem is we don't know which one of us has right now hepatitis C because it's a silent virus.
Yeah.
So every year, Clalit scans, takes blood tests from 50,000 people trying to find those carriers, and we only find 38 people on average out of 50,000 people that we check. And so we came in and said, can we do better? Can we find more than one per thousand? And we used, as early as 2017, we used the existing algorithmic capacity that we had back then, and we have created a predictive model that suggests who are the ones who actually have hepatitis C and do not know about it, and their doctors don't know about it. And we went to 500 of those, and we kind of knocked on their door, and we said, "Hello, would you be willing to come to the clinic and get tested for hepatitis C?" They said yes. We tested them. We would have expected less than one on average because it's
Mm.
only 500. It's one per thousand.
Yeah.
We found 38 positives in those 500,
Wow.
which means we went from one per thousand to one per 10. This means we improved care a hundredfold. A hundredfold. How many advancements in modern medicine have you seen that have improved care 100-fold in our lifetime? Not that many. So
Amazing.
we published this in the New England Journal of Medicine, AI, and this you can read there all of the methodology. It's not complex. We've done it before ChatGPT was around. It was done in 2018.
Yeah.
And so all I'm saying is that this type of approach is now prevalent in our system. And our CPI platform has many of those. We predict who's going to have diabetes and who's going to have a cardiovascular disease and who's going to break their bones because they have brittle bones that we can see through CT scans that suggest you have a problem, et cetera, et cetera. You get the drift. The point is we move from a responsive, reactive
Yes.
paradigm to a predictive, preventive approach. And if you think about what sustainable healthcare might look like, that's what sustainable healthcare could look like in the future.
Well, that brings up two issues to me, again, from an American viewpoint. One is amazement, and the technical side of me says, I want to know more about this. This is wonderful. And the personal side of me, and a lot of other Americans says, but who knows my information? Where will it go when humans stop looking and protecting me? We've had experiences in this country with AIs hallucinating and doing all kinds of things. So how do we know that our information is personally safe, or that we are personally safe? So there's a lot of both admiration and fear, I would say, excuse me, in equal amounts. And somebody like
Yeah.
me, I already gave up my personal life the day I signed up for social media and allowed Alexa in my house. So that wouldn't be my first question. But I have friends who are like, no, no, no. I want my doctor to have control of my information, period, the end. So I would say that's an ethical question, maybe from a medical standpoint.
No, I think it's also you had two critical points here. One is how do we maintain privacy, and the other one is how do we maintain responsible AI that would do what's best for me and would not make many mistakes and would probably do the things that I would like it to do. So
And
let's
convince people that there is such a thing as a responsible
exactly.
AI.
Exactly. So let's one by one.
Yeah.
In terms of privacy, Clalit is very, very adamant about maintaining privacy of its patients, and it keeps its repositories exceedingly safe. And we hadn't had, thank God, to this day, a major breach like you've seen in many other systems, despite the fact that we are one of the most cyber attacked health systems globally. We have been able to keep our data safe, and we only use it for
Hmm.
purposes that advance the care of our patients. And we do, and unlike other systems, we insist on using this data in order to improve the care of our patients. So
Hmm.
that's privacy. Regarding responsible use of and responsible creation and responsible use of AI, these are critical points in this era, especially as some regulators are trying to move back and kind of leave it the responsibility to others because they also understand there's no way that they can assure the quality of some of these solutions, especially decision support tools. And so what we have done is we have created a whole list of requirements, a checklist, if you'd like, of what would be considered a responsible development and use of AI. This list includes almost 80 different items that have anything to do from the clinical justification to the safe use of data to the cybersecurity to the ML ops to the ascertainment that the data that the model was trained of is the same as the data that is used in your health system, and the monitoring of the solution after it was deployed to make sure it didn't drift, and the impact assessment continuously. Now, all of this is in that list. And we are, I think, one of the first organizations globally that, first of all, validated this list. We published it also in the New England Journal of Medicine AI. It's called the Optica tool. Optica, it's an acronym, and it is, I think, it is now being adopted by many health systems, both locally and globally, as a kind of a framework in order to ascertain responsible AI. And nowadays, it is part of the Clalit bylaws, and every new tool that is either created internally or imported from the outside must go through this checklist and a sign off at the end of people, including the chief AI officer. Everybody needs to sign off on this before this begins serving our patients. And so this helps.
Okay. All sounds good, except the journalist in me, as well as the human person, says, but how can I trust the AI? How can I trust? All these things have been checked off, yes, but it's smarter than any of us. How can I trust it?
For now, all of the important clinical decision-making processes have to have the human physician in the loop. So this is still a decision support system,
Mhm.
not a decision replacement system.
Okay.
CPI AI Pro, when it's put into practice, the GP needs to approve every single recommendation, say yes. And you have to understand that the recommendations come to their desktop not as a, computer says X or Y, but as here's why, what we call explainable AI. We try to explain this is a 70-year-old female with a background of this and that, and these are the tests, and this is what the CT shows, and that's why, and all this is done by the AI. And it tells the physician, these are the reasons why I would suggest doing X or Y, and then the physician has a call
Hmm.
and they decide. So for now, this is the answer. But I would say, looking at the pace of things as where they're going, this will not last for long. At some point, simple decisions, non-critical, low risk decisions will be moved to a frontliner AI agent that would deal as first response to some of these simple needs. Now, you ask me, how do I know this AI agent would A, be safe, B, be clinically effective, and C, have the same value system that I or my physician has when it comes to make decisions?
Yes.
This is a very tough question. In another paper that we've just recently published, we've discussed all of these issues, and we think our group, led by Professor Zach Kohani from the Harvard Department of Biomedical Informatics, which is also the co-chair of the joint lab. We have the Clalit Research Institute and the Harvard Department of Medical Informatics have a joint lab that is creating the future of healthcare tools like the AI and the genomic systems. So one of the things Zach is leading right now is the call to create what is called VIM, or the value in models framework, that every model will have to have in its model card not just the basic technical issues, but also what are the kind of value systems and the decision guidelines that guide decisions made by the AI. So as we prepare for an era where AI agents will be providing more and more care, I think the transparency, not only on the technical aspects, but also on the value aspects, will be critical in order to drive proper trust. And trust is the basic, thing that makes systems and AI systems succeed or fail.
I think perhaps that trust may be easier for you to develop in Clalit and in Israel because patients, especially if they've been with Clalit their whole lives, have seen it developed in tranches. You know, it's not just imposed. This is our wonderful new system, and it's all been double checked and gone through all the steps and everything. And, you know, here you are. Here, and maybe most other countries, that wouldn't be true. I mean, we're going to get some of what you're talking about. It's all going to happen at once. I mean, it's not going to happen in bits and pieces. We are going to get the more advanced systems because we haven't been in on the beginnings and built the systems as you have. And that's a huge leap for people. I mean, at the bottom of all of this, of a healthcare system, is trust. I mean, patient to doctor trust. And there's unfortunately not enough of that, certainly with us in our country, but in many countries, particularly among the less fortunate people, the less educated people, people who've had bad experiences or their families have. So it's a huge leap to get over if you're going to superimpose. And that's what I see, because you're so far ahead of us that it has to be that way. At some point, these systems will start being superimposed. We're going to switch all at once. We're not going to go through all the incremental stages because it would cost too much. We're just going to do it. And that's going to be a big shock to us and to many people in other countries. How do you deal with that?
I think that you have to have rules, and you have to have regulation, and you have to have governance that would allow to create trust. And the governance should be involving both the civil society and the healthcare professionals to make sure that the AI is well aligned and that it is well calibrated and it does the right thing for the right reasons at the right time. And I think that without creating a good system of governance, people will be weary. And I have to tell you, justly so. There's no reason to believe that whatever comes out of the box is going to be acting as advertised in a new data system. And until it is shown and assessed, you do not know what is the value system that drives whatever it is you got in that black box. And you need to elucidate that in order to both make a decision to adopt a tool and also in order to get the health professionals and public trust. And as we said again and again, trust is the fuel that drives this system forward.
I see this as a wonderful forward movement on the disease level more than anything, and saving lives, and potentially, as public health will look at it, saving money because we won't have all these chronic diseases because they'll be caught before hopefully they become chronic, or people will never smoke, for example, in the first place. But I see a huge resistance among people, just out of fear, because I don't see everybody explaining it. There are no federal guardrails in America on any kind of AI. We don't even have it on social media. How can we have it on? And we've had social media for 20 years. So how do we get to those points? How do we? And I think, you're on the technical end and it's done wonderful things technically. And like I said, I get excited by that. But then the other part of it is this other part of it.
Trust needs to be earned. We've earned this trust in 15 years of gradual proof that we do the right thing by our patients, that we use their data judiciously in order to improve their health, and we align ourselves with their needs. And that's why they give us the trust right now to be using the new tools that we're bringing in. Now, they know that we have the technical capacity to ascertain that it's doing what it's supposed to do, that we have the responsibility to be, looking very closely at any tool we're giving and before it comes in terms of, and we know that we have our governance system that makes sure that nothing falls between the cracks. So, anyone can make mistakes, and it's always an option that something will not work as we've hoped it did. But at least we know we've done what was reasonably appropriate in order to make sure that we're doing the right thing. And again, whenever we say, the AI could make a mistake, I would challenge that person and ask him, and what is the status quo? And what is the alternative? And what is the error rate of your existing physician, your existing nurse? What is the health impact of you not receiving care for a week because there's queues and you cannot come in to take care? Is the alternative within the AI with its error rate, whatever it is determined to be, worse than what you have right now? Would you still accept it? There are now some insurance companies, vehicle insurance companies that actually give you a discount. Lemonade does that. They give you a discount if you have a autonomous driving in your car. So they say if you let the computer drive, you'll pay less insurance because on average, we know that by now, autonomous driving has fewer road accidents than human drivers. So do they have zero accidents? No. But on average, they do better. I see a future that is not too distant, that some AI tools will prove themselves to be in that category and in that level. And with the proper governance system and ascertainment, we could treat them the same.
I think it's going to have to be done, in a sense, system by system. Perhaps in Israel, you had the perfect system to, in a sense, be so much out front with this. I mean, you're the one who's the member of all these other country groups and know more about what's going on. How far advanced is your system over everybody else's?
All I can say is that there are many countries who make amazing steps forward right now. What the recent AI revolution, the LLM revolution, has done is it democratized, in many senses, the capacity of creating amazing tools without a lot of existing know-how. So I do anticipate in the coming future that we will see amazing innovation coming from countries and regions that we never expected it to come from. So the future is quite bright in terms of many countries doing amazing things. Our advantage is our previous experience as the data system that we have that we can trust, and everything else we just talked about that allows us to move carefully, but very quickly. And sometimes people think that strong governance is bad for innovation because it stops you from moving forward. And to that I say, cars with good brakes drive faster because the driver has the trust in order to press the gas.
Basically, just to sum everything up, um, what would you say is the greatest advance and the fastest greatest advance that we can look for in terms of AI, in terms of medical care?
I think that the first applications at scale have already been and will continue to be in the fields of radiology, in all of its branches, because it started first and because the improvement is very clear. And I think we are not so far from a future where looking at a imaging scan without the help of AI would be considered negligent. So it's actually the other way around. I think that the next domains that will come in there is every domain that is using images, ophthalmology, gastroenterology with endoscopies, pathology. These are the first ones because our eyesight is never going to be as good as what computer vision can already do, and
True.
actually it's been able to do for a decade at least. So I think these are the first to go. And I would say that also scribes and the ability to take away the need to use the keyboard are already becoming ubiquitous in the US, and I think will become globally used. And these are only platforms because on these additional decision support and improvement will build up.
Okay, and a final quick comment on how much money can we look to save if we can stop some of these illnesses early on, as you're able to do.
That is a very difficult macro question to answer. At the very least, I think many other countries, if they align their systems, if they have their incentives right, if they have their prices, if they have their unneeded care controlled, and or take away all of the middlemen, as we have done in our healthcare system, at the very least, they can, achieve our outcomes with 7% of GDP, which for some countries will be a twofold, for some countries threefold, and it's for some countries in terms of PPP dollars per capita, a fourfold improvement than the current state of affairs, and that putting aside also the better effectiveness and the impact that would have.
All right, Ron, thank you. It was just great, absolutely great. And I can't imagine, you're doing such great work over there. That's fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Ron Balicer is a physician, scientist, and executive who's Israel's leading healthcare innovator. He's Deputy Director General and Chief Innovation Officer at Clalit, Israel's largest healthcare organization, and founding director of its research institute overseeing digital transformation and AI initiatives. He's played key roles in COVID-19 response, vaccine studies, and global AI governance, mentoring scholars and holding prominent academic and advisory positions, shaping health policy and innovation worldwide. Now, we didn't have time to talk about how AI is changing or will change social care, which is often the weakest leg of any country's healthcare system. But many countries, including the U.S., are looking at adding more community-based healthcare clinics and also affordable ways to move people out of expensive hospital beds more quickly and into rehab centers or back to their own homes with adequate supervision. But that's for another episode. And speaking of episodes, it's been such a busy winter, and some of us spent most of it, it seems, endlessly shoveling snow, that I'm not sure exactly whom we'll be talking to for our episode 44. But you can be sure it will be on my pod page as soon as I know. What I do know is that episode 44 will drop on the third Tuesday of May. As you know, I schedule one new podcast episode a month. If you enjoy the podcast, please follow us or subscribe and share. The video version's on YouTube, audio on Apple, and on all the other major platforms, including my host platform, the Podbeam website and app. Show notes and links on my website, stephanieshelton.com/conversations. I'm Stephanie Shelton. Take good care of yourself and all those you love. And I'll see you next time. Conversations on Health, How We Get There is produced and edited by Frank Harold. Research assistance from Dr. Richard Saltman, Professor Emeritus of Health Policy and Management, Rollins School of Public Health at Emory University in Atlanta.